to another edition of Brownsville, as is
A for Achana.
S for Sonia.
We are in Mercer, Tennessee, just a stone's toss across the county line.
That's right. Lots of history here.
Yes, yes.
And we have got one of the best historians I've ever met who's going to be our guest today.
I'm so excited to meet Mr. Billy King.
Mr. Billy King. He is the president of the Big Black Creek Historical Society and just does so much work in this area to preserve history.
Yeah.
We are here at Papa Daddy's.
Yes. Ooh.
Goodies.
Can't wait.
There's a special burger they have called the Papa Daddy that I can't wait to sink my teeth into.
Burgers, good grilled pork chops, fish.
Steaks on the weekend, ribeyes, and
Breakfast?
Oh yeah, breakfast
Yeah,
on the weekends
breakfast,
as
yeah,
well. So yeah, and Angie, who is the owner here, is going to share the story of Papa Daddy's with us later.
Hey, I think it's time for us to go in.
Let's go meet Mr. Billy.
Yes, let's go. Come on with us.
And Mr. Mercer, who owned the grocery store in Tennessee, was at Denmark, and he was going to Estenali. And when he got right there, he saw where they were laying the railroad tracks, and he was on the trail. And so he went back home, and his daughter had married Mr. Franklin McGlathery. And McGlathery was a station master.
Okay.
And so he told Franklin that this was a perfect spot for a town because you had the flatboats up and down the Big Black Creek, you had the Hatchie River, and now you had the new railroad.
Oh, wow.
When Mercer became a little town, Mr. McGlathery then and his father-in-law laid the town out, literally. And we have a copy of that map that they laid it out in. And they began selling off lots. So the Presbyterians bought this lot in 1910 and built this building. So this building's 110 years old. Dark Germany did that. He did the outline of it, put it on the train. He came, stayed with Miss Annie Sue while in town. It's Christ crying over the city of Jerusalem, is what it is. The 2x4 studs in that house go from the foundation to the roof. See how straight that old sucker's sitting? That's right. And those are one piece of lumber. So Mr. McGlathery really built it well. That is the original front door. We found it and had it redone. Mercer didn't exist. There was no such thing as Mercer. And Denmark being one of the only towns, second would have been Toon, Tennessee would have come in, and then Brownsville and the other towns began building up is what really happened all the way through. I told you outside, I'll repeat it since we're doing it. Mr. Mercer following what I believe to be just an Indian trail. But he was coming from Denmark, and he was going to Estenali. And Estenali is a landing on the Hatchie River. And Estenali in the Chickasaw language means here we crossed. So it was their crossing of the Hatchie is what it was. But Hatchie is also a Chickasaw word, and it means river. And so technically what we say Hatchie River, we say river, so we say technically. It was a main mode of transportation for the Chickasaws or any of the Indians. There were 2 hotels at Estenali, and it was a gambling. They were gambling. There was a racehorse track there. And so what would happen, tourists would literally get on those steamboats in Memphis, and they would come all the way up and then down to Estenali and stay overnight in those hotels and gamble. And then there was a racetrack at Estenali also, so they had gambling at the racetrack completely. Mercer and I keep losing my story. He was going from Denmark to Estenali, and he was following the Big Black Creek. And when he got here, he discovered that they were laying the new railroad tracks through here. And so he saw that, of course, and coming down the creek, he realized there were 2 modes of transportation that were coming together right there at one spot. and that was the flatboats coming in and out of Denmark in that area, and then the new railroad. His daughter, who was in her teens at that time, lived at Toon. He had a store at Toon, and so he was a merchant is what he really was. And he went back home. His daughter had married recently a Mr. Franklin McGlathry, who had been the station master for the train in Baden, Mississippi, and they had moved him there. He was a single young man, and of course then you had Mattie Mercer, a single young girl. So Mr. Franklin had married Mattie Mercer, and Mr. Mercer told him all about it, all about the Hatchie River being here, about the Big Black Creek, about the new railroad. And Mr. Franklin came over and bought the land. And he and his father-in-law laid out the town of Mercer and laid out the place that the new train station would be. They appointed Mr. McGlathry to be the train master, since he was a train master in Toon. And so he and Mattie moved over here. Since they were all merchants, they built a store building, actually, and they lived upstairs over the store. And then in 1888, they built the house that's across the street here and moved over there. Mr. Franklin and his father-in-law actually laid the town out. So you do see streets, even though it's not incorporated, but it was laid out by Mr. Mercer and Mr. Franklin and Mr. McGlathry. I don't know why they never really registered it with the state at all. It became a major railroad stop, and especially during the two wars. It has one very unusual distinction. The train would come through and it would stop here for a few minutes at the station, and they would be troop trains carrying the troops both for the First World War and the Second. And the troops realized that if they wrote their letters home, and when they got to Mercer, if they threw the letters off the train, the Mercer people would pick those letters up and put postage on it. The town was noted for its doctors. Up over this building, and we're in the building, Mr. J.J. Pennington built this building. And he built the one across the street, which was his first store. And then when it grew so much that he built this building, which is two-story, and upstairs were the doctor's offices. There were about 5 doctor's offices in this building, actually. And you could even buy your coffin here, too. So the undertaker, you'd come in the store, and they had them on this wall, as a matter of fact. You'd pick out your coffin. The town, the church, the first little church that was here, is the little Presbyterian that's next door. It was out here in the country. It's Ebenezer, and it was organized in 1823. And when the little town began to rise up, the congregation bought this lot from Mr. Mercer and Mr. McGlathry, and they built this building in 1910 and moved the congregation from out there to here is what they did. And it doesn't have a congregation anymore. It belongs to the Big Black Creek Historical Association. They own that building, and they're in the process of restoring it and have been doing that now for several years.
I fought God over it for about a year. He kept wanting me to reach out to the community, and I was like, no, you know, I do that through church, and this place was for sale, and I was like, he's like, you just need to get a restaurant and open it up to the community. And I thought, well, no, I don't have time for that, because we have our own business and I keep my grandkids, and I just didn't have time. And I fought it for about a year, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. So bought this place in January, in December actually of 2018. Started renovating it in 2019 in January, and then we opened up in June, the first week of June in 2019, and it was just I just wanted something for the community or surrounding communities to come and have a place to fellowship and talk and just mingle and laugh, and we got it started. Papa Daddy's, I couldn't think of the name because I wanted it to be special, because it was almost kind of like naming your child. So I thought about it and prayed about it for a long time, and I was just driving down the road and I thought, Papa Daddy's. you know, because when I bought the place, I always had my daddy in mind because he was a big coffee drinker, and he would go to the coffee shops and drink coffee, and I would go with him when I was younger. And then when our kids came along, of course we called him Daddy, and then they called him Papa, and some of them called him Pa, and they couldn't figure out why we called him Daddy and they called him that, so they just started calling him Papa Daddy. And that name just rang a bell. I thought, gosh, that fits Mercer, you know, and Daddy would just love this place, so that's how I came up with the name, is Papa Daddy. And I think of him a lot. When things happen in here, I would think, you know, how he would react or what he would say. So I never questioned myself if I was wrong by naming it Papa Daddy. Sometimes people laugh, you know, think Papa Daddy's, that's kind of funny. But when you get here, that's what you feel. You feel like it's just family. And so, and that's just what we wanted, was to just show the love of Jesus. And that's the way we want you to feel when you're here. The mural on the wall, I couldn't think what to put on that wall. The mural on the wall is very special to me. When I look at it, sometimes it just brings tears to my eyes, those men on that wall. They mean a lot to me. They mean a lot to my family. Not just my kids, but also my grandkids. Mike Bass, he was a friend of ours from Bolivar. I've known him all my life. They've always called him Cheesy. And so I Facebook stalked him and found him. He's like, yeah, you know, it's something new for me. Haven't done something like this in a long time, but let's do this. So he did. It took him 6 weeks. The menu was a challenge at first because we didn't really know. I think we've changed it 3 times. We just wanted to get a feel of what the community and the surrounding counties would want to come and eat. We didn't want to just offer just fast food. We wanted some southern food also. So we just have a variety. Like every day at lunch, we'll have a special. It could be meatloaf, squash, green beans, something like that, fried pork chops. Sometimes we'll have chicken and dressing that's homemade, and just things like that through lunch. And then on Friday and Saturday night, starting at 5, we have prime rib and ribeyes just almost every weekend. And we'll have like an Italian dish and our grilled pork chops, which are really a big hit. And we'll have shrimp or fish tacos or something along that line. We do that from 5 to 9, Friday and Saturdays.
So what do you think?
Girl, this table's here because I need to prop up a little bit.
I know, I so get it. Oh, Sonia, that burger.
Delicious.
Oh,
What about that Kit Kat cheesecake?
the absolute best.
Yes.
The homemade onion rings. And this is some good sweet tea. We're in the South. This was sweet tea today. Sweet
yes,
tea today.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you know the best part was hearing all the history from Mr. Billy and the stories that he tells.
Such a wealth of knowledge,
Yeah.
and just a wonderful storyteller.
Absolutely.
I could listen for hours and hours.
And learning about the name, Papa Daddy's,
Yeah.
and where that came from, and what a mission Angie and her crew are on for this community.
They've been so kind to us
They
all
have
day
been.
long. They
They
really
have
have
been.
been.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Bye.